Now we're going to implement this business logic. In authentication service, I need some kind of repository to interact with Prisma. So some class or some service that performs CRUD operation into the database. So I will have Prisma service, and this Prisma will have CRUD operations like this.prisma.user.create. Because we have user model, this will be converted to the class, but we don't have Prisma service yet. Let's create the Prisma service. Inside the source folder, I can create prisma.ts file, and I can copy that. It's a Prisma service. It is extending the Prisma client and implements the own module in it. This dot connect does not exist. Why? Did I install Prisma client? I think I did not install Prisma client. So go ahead and install Prisma client. Now error has gone. Now we have installed Prisma client. It's gonna initiate this connection with Prisma. This class will setting up the connection with Prisma to the Postgres database, and it will return CRUD operations. This class will have CRUD operations. Now our goal is to import Prisma service here. Make sure you register in authentication module, otherwise you will get the error. We need to register it Prisma service. Now I can use that here. Make sure you import it from the /Prisma. So we created the Prisma service and we injected into authentication module. Now this Prisma will have CRUD operation: create user, delete user, update user. Here is a complete flow of Prisma. You will define the model in schema.prisma file, just like we did here. In the schema.prisma file, we defined ID, email, password here, and Prisma service will use that Prisma model, and it provides the CRUD operations like create user, delete user, update user. And when create user is going to be called, it's gonna create a new record in users table. The actual CRUD operation or CRUD logic will be performed by Prisma service. So we need to use Prisma service. Now it's time to save the user in the database. There is a method in the Prisma, but I cannot access the user class. What you can do, you gotta generate that class, or you gotta generate the CRUD operations related to that user class by running npx prisma generate. Npx prisma generate. It's gonna generate the user class for me, converted that model into TypeScript class, and it will also provide it typing related to class, user class. And this Prisma can access the prisma.user.create. Make sure you are in the authentication microservice. Npx prisma Prisma migrate, or not migrate, generate. Now Prisma client has generated. Let's try to access that here. This dot Prisma dot, it should give me the user. And Prisma variable loaded from env, generated Prisma client. Prisma client. Let's double check that from my notes. Open the authentication service again. Now let's try to access that. Oh, now I can access the user. You could see all of the operations are available for you. Create many and return, find many, find unique, update. We're gonna use create. Here you gotta provide the data, and you need to provide your email. I can get that from data.email, and you need to provide your password, data.password. Did you notice that I don't want to save the password in plain text format? First of all, we need to encrypt the user password. We're gonna use another package for encrypt. I think I already installed that. Let's try to access that, JWT. And actually it's not a JWT, it's a bcrypt package. Yes, bcrypt package. I think I don't have bcrypt package. Oh, I have that. There is a hash method, you can use that. Make sure use the async await. bcrypt.js is not cannot find the module. Let's install that. Install in a root directory. It should, let's use the user DTO. Instead of data any, I can use the user DTO. This time I can access the Prisma client. Import from Prisma client. Now I can access the typing. The type is providing email and the password. This is amazing. Now it should be user dto.email, user, not user dto, it should be hashed. It's gonna return, create the user. I can also get that user back. If everything is fine, then we need to return the user. Actually, we need to return the email. I don't want to return the password in the response. I can say return user.email. Now I would like to wrap my code inside the try catch block. If something went wrong, it should log the error. I can use refactor. More select try catch block. Error, here you can throw the error. We have encrypt the user password by using the hash method. You got to provide the plain text password to hash that. This should be a number for salt round. Most of the time you use the 10. They use that for algorithm, something like that. And we call the create method from the user class, from the Prisma class. And I provided the email and the hashed password. And finally, we're gonna return the email. In the next video, we're gonna test that. We will try to register the user and see either is it going to create the user record in a table or not. Let's send the register request or a sign up request. I can create a new user. I can call new-user@gmail.com or new_user. This should be my password. We have successfully created a user. I got the email back in the response. It means user created successfully. You can also double check from your database. I'm using a Table Plus software. You can download the Table Plus software, or if you have MySQL, actually Postgres tool or any graphical user interface for PQL Postgres, you can use that. But I'm gonna use Table Plus. Let's create a new connection. Search for Docker Compose. We need connection URL, connection string. This should be my Postgres user. I can call it. Let's create a new connection. I can select the Postgres. Name of your connection, auth. Authentication, your username and your password and database name. What we use, auth-db, I think. Let's double check that from .env file, auth-db. All right. And the port should be 5433. It should be localhost or 127.0.01. Here you can see user table, but we also have Prisma migrations table. Here is our new user, this one. So it means a user has created successfully, and you can also see the password in encrypted format. In the previous videos, I have taught you the authentication flow. You have learned how to implement the sign up feature. It's gonna return the email back just like we saw in the previous video. Here we're gonna implement the login feature. A client will send the login request to the server, and server will send the JSON Web Token. If you don't know about the JSON Web Token, you should go to this website, jwt.io. We will save the email or the ID of the user, and it will return this type of token. So to access the protected route, a user must need to provide this token. Now we're going to implement the login route. I can copy the same and paste it here. I can say the login. It will also provide the username and password. That will fine. Here we need to compare the password, and then we will find the user based on email. I have already written that code. I can copy that. Now I can explain you line by line. It should be user dto.email. First, there is a method find unique. I would like to find user. You need to provide the where clause. I would like to find user based on email. If user found successfully, we don't need to, we should continue this operation. If there is a no user, here we are trying to compare a user password. The first one, you gotta provide the password, the plain text format password, and we saved encrypted hash, and you gotta provide that. Here it should be user dto.password. If password not matched or user does not find, it should return invalid credential. Bcrypt has package just like hash. Bcrypt has compare method just like the hash. Compare password here. And we need to JSON web JWT service. I think we need to inject that. JWT service allow us to create the token, and in you saw this token, this one in NestJs. JWT service allow us to create the token. So we need to inject. I think we imported that. Now we need to inject it here. I'm gonna inject it here. This .jwt dot sign method. One more thing, we need to provide the JWT service into the provider. Just like I got the issue, hey, you are using the JWT service but it is not registered in the module. So it's a dynamic module, dynamic service, authentication module. Go to the auth.module, and we need to register it here. We need to register the JWT module. It's a dynamic module, so I can provide the configuration. You should provide your secret key. Make sure we're gonna use that env from a real env file. When we are deploying the project, we will save this encryption in this secret key in env file. I have set the expiry date of 1 hour. This, just like we are going to create this JSON web token, this token will be expired after 1 hour. You can set 1 minute, 2 minute. Let's save the application. No errors found. We created the login method in authentication service. What we need to do, we also need to register it in the authentication controller. I think I already did that, but we need to call that method. Login service is expecting 2 arguments. Oh, we need to provide in the form of object. It should be email. It should be password. You can also use a DTO just like we did in our previous microservices. Here you can also replace that code to user DTO. So we registered it here. We also need to define this route in our API gateway. API gateway controller. We have defined that login, and it's gonna call that login credentials. Yes, it's gonna send the login command. We have registered the login command. Let's try to test that. In the previous video, we created that user. Now it's time to log in that user. I can say sign up. Now we gotta go do login. I can say login. Awesome. We have generated access token. This is the JWT token. But if you notice that in the authentication service, we are saving user ID and user email in the token. If you check the jwt.io, they are saving the name, which is Jane and admin to true. To access the protected route, you need to provide the JSON web token in the authorization header. And then we can decrypt that token and get the user ID and the user email. Now we're gonna implement the profile route. This route should be protected route. Only authenticated user can access his profile. So in the previous video, when you log in, you get the access token, and then you need to provide the access token in the authorization header to access the protected route. We have already defined the profile route. You can see that get rider profile. It's gonna accept the request, but we are getting the user ID from the request object request.user.id. When we created the token, you saw I save the user ID, this one, the user ID. It should be request.user, and we save the email. What we want to do, we need to have a guard or some kind of middleware to check is it valid token to decrypt the ID and email from the token. So the NestJs provide the guards concept. It's nothing more, it's a middleware. Client will send the request. Let's say profile route you can access. Client wants to access his profile or user wants to access his profile. We will have the authorization guard. This guard will check, did this client can access this request handler or profile route. We're gonna do this business logic here. Now we're gonna create our authorization guard. I started the application. I got this error. AuthDB does not exist. If you get this error, you can create a new database by clicking on here, and you gotta provide the DB name. I use the AuthDB. Now we're gonna create a new guard. You should open the terminal inside the API gateway. Open the terminal in the source directory, and there is a command nest generate guard and the name of the guard, which is auth. A guard has been generated or created. Now it's time to add business logic in the guard. Here we have the auth guard. It should return the boolean value. If everything is fine, it's gonna return the true. If you look up the slides, if everything is fine, this guard will return true and it will proceed to the next process. If guard returns false, it's gonna return the error back to the client. Hey, you cannot access that route. So what we are going to do, first we need to get the header. We need to get the authorization header. We're gonna provide that authorization header in the login. Let's check that. I think we don't have any user. Let's create a new user. I think I'm having an issue.